Focus High School.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today, and welcome to the panel discussion. Ms. Mona has very aptly put a lot of points across, and I think as leaders, we have all observed in our schools that at the beginning of every year, there is a wide gap or a range of student abilities, especially in subjects like math and English. So in a class 6 classroom, you would have a child who is on grade 2 level of English and a child who has already crossed grade 10 level of English. And this problem is pretty much universal. It is unfortunate that our learning system assumes that children of similar age and therefore class will have broadly similar points of learning and development. It is also unfortunate that in having a middle ability curriculum, we often neglect the most able children in our classroom, the gifted children, the ones who are really smart, and who require minimum effort to complete the curriculum. Good teaching and having teachers who have a deep understanding of the material they are teaching is an obvious requirement of any school. Schools in this part of the city have got similar problems. They are low-budget schools. They have large class sizes. They have varying ability of teachers. The students are from low socioeconomic backgrounds. Today, we want to focus on solutions that low-budget schools can easily follow. With these thoughts in mind, let us commence our discussion on how we can cater to individual needs of children in affordable private schools. Can I ask you, sir, to start the discussion and give me your thoughts? You can have 5.
Very good afternoon to all of you. First of all, thank you, Minhaj, for making me part of this wonderful day. Thank you. Before I go into this, discussion, I would like to ask the audience, and most of you are principals here, most of our teachers here. How often do we talk to the slow learners? You said it. From morning onwards, I am listening that word called slow learners. But we don't try to call them slow learners. We call them future learners. If not today, tomorrow they are going to learn. So 6 times I heard about it. And we have removed that word slow learners from our lexicon. They are future learners. How often the principals and the teachers look at the backbenchers, talk to them, look at their eyes. The teachers in their hurry to complete the syllabus, the so-called man-made necessary evil called syllabus, you forget the backbenchers. I mean, I'm also including that. We always look at the front benchers who are always goodies from LKG to class 10th, and they grow as first benches, and they end up like civil servants. Then what happens to the backbenchers? They end up politicians, right? And these goodies often have to salute the backbenchers. That is what is happening in India now. So why don't we all look at the backbenchers, as Sir rightly mentioned, the politicians, so we'll have better politicians. Look at the backbenchers. Listen to them. When we look at their eyes, we find that, ma'am, please look at me. We are always looking at these front benches, ma'am. Why don't you look at me? Sir, please look at me. But we have no time to look at them. And that's what is happening in our schools. It's across everyone. I work for Telangana Social Welfare Residential Schools. We are also doing the same thing. Our teachers are also doing the same thing. Otherwise, the principal is there. With all respect to Minhaj, Principal is there. Why are you not completing the syllabus? As a teacher, I worked in the school 15 years as a teacher. And I was always the last one to complete the syllabus. The principal asked me, George, you are not completed the syllabus. What is the reason? And I was busy talking to the children. So this is what should happen. So please look at. And you also might have heard about, the animal school, wherein all the animals are decided to start a school. And there were bears, there were eagles, there were fishes, there were giraffe. All were having one syllabus. But the teachers asked the eagles to run, fishes to climb the trees. This is what happened in our schools also. We are not understanding the students. See, it is not confined to the old city alone, schools alone. Teachers ask, the English teacher says English is the most important subject. Math teachers, no, maths is most important. So why don't you study English? And the math teacher is not realizing that he is not for a mathematics. He doesn't have a mathematical ability. He has arts ability. So this is what happened in our schools. I think we should all, as teachers, should take care of this. Talk to the children and find out what is the ability. And we are all grown up reciting the pledge, India is my country. You and me, without knowing the meaning of it, we all recited that. India is my country. All India, all brothers and sisters. Indians are brothers and sisters. You have forgotten that. Even I don't know the meaning of that. Even now, in our schools, the children, without knowing the meaning of it, they recite it. We have got rid of that. In our morning assembly, we ask the children to recite the 10 commandments. It is not the 10 commandments, the Old Testament. Please allow me to read those 10 commandments. And every day, our children recite across our schools. I am not inferior to anyone. I shall be the leader wherever I am. I shall do what I love and be different. I shall always think big and aim high. I shall be honest, hardworking, and punctual. I shall never blame others for my failures. I shall neither beg nor cheat. I shall repay what I borrow. I shall never fear the unknown. And the last commandment is, I shall never give up. I think we should redefine our pledge. Why don't you think of giving a school-specific commandment to our children and see the difference? And you might have heard about Purna, the famous movie where Rahul was playing a secretary's role. Purna climbed Mount Everest because of the last commandment, I shall never give up. And she proudly declares, even now, whenever she speaks, she says, those 10 commandments are my goals. And I always recited the 10 commandments. She has seen dead bodies just in front of her eyes. She crossed dead bodies. And she was the youngest girl to climb Mount Everest at the age of 13 years and 6 months. So these 10 commandments, this is the power of 10 commandments. I think I not speak much about it. So I'm a very, very practical man. So let us not think about how do we look after our children. Talk to them. Feel them. One of the speakers said, ma'am also said, speak to them. Feel them. Touch them. We don't have time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Ma'am, can you say a few words, please?
Yeah, I think actually Mona in her speech said everything I wanted to say, but for what it's worth, I teach at the tertiary level, and as such, I end up seeing some of the problems compounded, problems of school education compounded at the university level. And so a lot of what I say, and I realize from the conversations that we've been having since the morning that the issues are very similar. In a large public university, the issues are very similar to those that a teacher in an affordable private school might face. I have a very diverse class of 40 students, many of whom are first-generation learners, but of course they've struggled enough to come to the university level, so they have advantages over the kind of first-generation learners who are in your classrooms, who are still, yet to go through that struggle. But I think the problems of learning that they have are very similar to the problems of learning that children in schools have. So just a few ideas that I've tried to use in my classroom. And as somebody who writes constantly about education and interacts with teachers, I also feel like I'm learning from different contexts. And I think, as a teacher, whether you're learning from the school context or life's context or university context, it's, you have lessons to take from all of these spaces. So I think the first myth that we really need to bust is the myth of the average student. I mean, there is no average student, right? And it's much easier for us to teach to this mythical student who will not challenge us than to think about the real students who sit in front of us. So I think the moment that we accept that this average student for whom our practices have been designed doesn't exist, and what we need to deal with are the living, breathing bodies in front of us, I think things become at once more complex and easier. More complex because then you have to think about the student rather than about delivering the syllabus. And easier because then, it's always easier dealing with individuals and with people than it is with some abstract learning outcomes. And I think, we tend to assume that we have little agency in the face of things like syllabi and curriculum and school structures. But I think within the space of a classroom, a teacher has a huge amount of agency. And, again, as Mona described, with a little bit of empathy, not a little bit, a lot of empathy, and some reflexivity, it's possible to exercise that agency in ways that makes a real difference. And that allows you to see the syllabus. It's there and it needs to be addressed, but there are ways in which we can address it while also taking into account individual needs without being determined by it in some sense. So an idea that I came across, and perhaps one that teachers at the school level are familiar with, is this idea of the learning contract. And I think the learning contract is a way to get a student to first put down what they expect from a program, what they think they can learn and what they are interested in learning. And as a teacher, you have 40 learning contracts, 60 learning contracts in your classroom, and you're able to then see, okay, this child needs to go from this level to this level and is aware that she or he needs to go from this level to this level. So let me see how I can assist that child. So I think trying to work with the idea of the learning contract where children also are given an opportunity to articulate their agency might be something that can work in many of these classrooms.
That's a very good point.
Yeah. So, and then finally, I think, and again, this is something that I'm just echoing some of the earlier speakers, if we focus on process rather than outcome. I mean, as a parent and as a teacher of language, I also see that if you talk about process and not focus too much on the outcome takes care of itself. And also then you're not telling children that they have to achieve a certain level. You're only telling them that they have to follow a process, and through the process they will learn. So I think, just following some of these very simple methods, recognizing individual children, feeling like you don't have to be governed by the syllabus, recognizing the agency that you have in the classroom, and debunking the myth of the average, I think we can address individual needs. Thank you.
That was really good, ma'am. Thank you very much. You can keep the mic. Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon, and thank you very much, the Focus International, especially Asma. As rightly my friend said, that there are no slow learners, right? So my humble request to all the educators is that please remove this word from the dictionary, that there are no slow learners. Please don't use the slow learners because it gets tagged and the student lives up with that. As he rightly said, that backbenchers, slow learners, good for nothing, useless. Teachers keep using these words, and the child, instead of the graph going up, it comes down. Yeah. Thank you very much, sir, for that. I just wanted to highlight that. And as we all know, all educators know that there are different styles of learning for each child. I mean, no two children has the same style of learning. So the curriculum and the book is given to me as a tool. But when I'm planning my lesson plan, can I pitch in? Because I'm the queen of the class. So can I make my lesson interesting based on the multiple intelligence, based on the different styles of learning, that is WAC, visual, auditory, and kinesthetic? Because children will not learn, all are not visuals, all are not auditory people, all are not kinesthetic.
Absolutely
Yes.
right, ma'am, yes.
So can we make a lesson plan or the objectives? How far is my curriculum catering to the needs of the children? That I have to think. This is a tool for me. This is not the Bible for me.
Yes,
Yes.
that's very, very true.
This is not the Bible for me that I have to go word by word or line by line. I'm the queen of the class. This is given to me. How different that differentiation learning, what ma'am was talking, is absolutely right, ma'am. Because this is in my hand. I can keep it aside. I can have my own creativity. I see the children, the backbenches. That personal touch is very important, friends. You know, that empathy is very important. What happens? That's the human tendency that front benches are catered more, their needs are catered more. They don't need us. They don't need us. But I'll tell you a very live example. I'm the head of because pre-primary level is very close to my heart, because I have worked in that level for 40 years. And the other day I was just walking around for monitoring, and I happened to enter PP2. And I don't know, my dressing, it must have been some special, because I don't remember that. And the teacher, before I could enter, they told teacher, Anita ma'am is looking very nice. So the teacher said, why don't you tell Anita ma'am directly? So they were a little hesitant, being the head and all. Children are little, they withdraw themselves. So it just happened to enter the class. Ma'am, you're looking. They did like this, you're looking like this. I said, thank you very much. That space has to be given for appreciation. That space has to be given for acknowledgement. Unless and until we don't do that, we don't create that platform, we don't listen to them, we are in a hurry to complete this. I always tell my teachers, please don't be in a hurry to complete the syllabus. Please work around the skill development in the children. And I have first generation learner parents. The other day, one parent came to me. He's a boy, he's having a speech problem, but he's very good at orals. I mean, he goes to the board and draw. Then he came to my mom, 1 year is over, my child is not able to write A to Z. He's in nursery. I told him, sir, please sit down. And they're educated parents. I said, sir, please sit down. Our curriculum revolves around the skill development. Academic, by default, it will happen. You don't have to stress the child. You're not writing, hold the child's hand and make him write. Kindly do not. The end of the day, when the graduation day was there, the parent came to me and then he said, thank you very much for educating us, ma'am. We were just concerned that my child is not able to write. So as rightly said, to have empathy, to educate the parent, because they are first generation learners. Yes, thank you very much,
ma'am. I'd like to add a little point. It just came to me. We had attended a conference in Bombay, and we had gone to visit a few schools. And I was absolutely horrified to see that in a few schools, the teachers were given ready-made lesson plans, yes, which were a photocopy of each other, yes, that all the sections had to teach. And all the teachers had to do exactly the same thing. Okay. And I was absolutely stupefied. Like, I couldn't understand how you can give a ready-made lesson plan to a teacher. There is absolutely no space for creativity.
Absolutely.
No space for personalization, no space to breathe. And you expect everything to be replicated as if it's done in an industry. So I'm so glad that we agree that the curriculum is not a Bible. Yes. It is for our help, and we can differentiate and personalize lessons in our classrooms.
Yeah, one more thing, Asma, sorry. Here I would like to read 4 lines. Those who make the syllabus, they don't make the curriculum. Those who make the curriculum, they don't write the book. Those who write the book, they don't teach. Those who teach don't set the question paper. Those who set the question paper don't go for evaluations.
That's very, very true, ma'am. Thank you. Yes, sir.
So very good afternoon to everyone. Thank you very much, Focus High School and Vinod sir, for giving me this opportunity. So sometime last year, I was reading a report from, I don't remember the organization, I was trying to look at that report, which organization gave that. I think it's Central Statistical Organization of Government of India. They were publishing a report on the child dropouts and what is the primary reason for the dropouts. If I get that report, and perhaps I can quote that as well, and I can share with Vinod sir for, to be shared largely. I think one thing that we all think is students drop out because, especially in government schools, in rural areas, as well as in budget private schools, one of the dominant reasons that we think is they take up child labor because they want to support their families. But to my surprise, in that report, 60 to 70% of the students said school is not relevant for them. School is not helping them in any way. I think it's a very relevant topic that we're talking right now, the individual needs. When we say individual needs, I want to broaden that scope of discussion, not to only academic needs. We need to think of whole range of needs that students, we need to cater for to really revitalize this institution to meet the needs of the children of this day. So, especially if I have to talk about budget private schools, I have been working with budget private schools the last 5 years. I myself was a Teach Finder Fellow, taught in a slum school for two years. I had picked up some context of what happens in slums, what is the context of slum, really opened up my eyes of the completely different world that we have never thought of in the slums. And the last 3 years I've been visiting so many slums in Hyderabad, close to 140 schools have been working with in different parts of Hyderabad. I have picked up certain understanding of what are the needs of these children. So when I looked at what are the needs of these children in budget private schools, especially run in slum areas, are largely stemming from their socio-economic and psychological context of the community. It's a very, very important thing. Let me elaborate them. To really understand these children, if I have to say for myself, I being a child from slum school, I might be a child who is coming from, who is a child of a family whose parents are illiterate. And that means I don't have any support system back home, which can help me actually harness my growth. And it also means that sometimes these children are also coming from violent communities. They're exposed to violence at home as well as in the community. And these are also children who are coming from poor economic backgrounds, especially sir was talking just now, whose priority is less education and more of functions and so many other festivities. So they spend a lot of time visiting the villages or participating in small festivals and so many other odd things. And for them, classroom comes a very later priority. Yeah? And these are the children also who are coming from very disturbed families. Sometimes these are the children from single parent, sometimes no parent, or sometimes every day fight happens between parents. And sometimes these are also children who don't have any role models that shows to them, if I study well, I can grow up in life. So this is the context of the students that we are talking about, especially in slum schools. And added on to that, as the students move up the grades, I mean, the current system that we have a lot of students who don't even have foundational skills like basic literacy. SR report is talking a lot about our reading levels in the country. It's highlighting a lot about numeracy skills. Hardly we find students in 5th grade who can do addition or subtraction. How can they actually move to the higher grades and actually tackle the pressure of academics there in the higher levels? So these are the realities that the students are actually coming from. So these realities are actually leading the students, actually are forcing students in many cases to take up child labor. I think in old city, a lot of times it's very common. Students, school leaders say that, okay, students are taking to child labor. They don't come to school next morning because they take up child labor. That's why they're either absent or they come late to school. And there are a lot of times these children also are subjected to violence, or they themselves pick up violence. There are lots of mood swings as well for these children, and they're also depressed. And many students are also absent from classes chronically because of so many events happening beyond their classrooms, beyond their control. So for which they are not actually the problem, right? And we also see students who take up to smoking, drug abuse, and so many other things. Poor educational outcomes is also adding to that, right? And when we talk about catering to the needs of individual learners, I strongly feel that these socio-economic parameters which are controlling their ability to learn in the classroom should definitely be addressed. Because if you don't address them, the child does not have a mind to learn. He can't focus in the classroom. That is something I think we need to give primacy to that also. Let me talk about a story of a girl in my classroom. She was a very bright student when I took up my fellowship. 3 months when I was working with her, she was doing very well in her exams. So I would also name her name. She's Monica. She was doing very well for 3 months, and suddenly I started noticing dip in her performance. I was thinking, I had my own notion, okay, maybe she is someone who is rote memorizing everything. That's why when I changed the question paper, she's not answering. So I thought, okay, maybe I need to work with her on her exam skills. I tried that, working with her individually, but still performance did not change. And every single day when I looked at her face, it's becoming gloomy. There was no joy in her face. Then I was understanding, no, I did not understand her problem right. That she is a rote learner or some kind of different learner. There's something happening. Then I went to her house once for a visit. Then she was talking the plight of her family. Her mother is actually fighting a very hard divorce battle. Father is a drunkard and he is living with some other lady, and he doesn't take care of their family. Her mother is the only loan earner. She earns 6,000 rupees. The rent of the house is 2,000 rupees. The school fees for her and for her brother is around 1,000 rupees per month. Imagine the rest of the 3,000 rupees they have to spend for their food and for meeting all other needs. And she has a very younger brother who was studying in LKG then, and she was in 2nd grade. Every single morning, as soon as her mother leaves, this girl have to wake up and take care of the household chores, nurse her brother, get her brother ready to come to the classroom, go back home and again clean all the utensils and again prepare dinner and take care of her brother. Then I was just thinking, it's not my teaching style or it's not the classroom environment that's actually hampering her. It's something else. For her at that point in time, the need is my emotional support. It's not, why are you not doing well? I'll do 100 things for you. No, that is not the need I should be addressing at that point in time. The need that I should be addressing for that girl at that point in time was, how do I give that emotional support for that girl to stand up? And I think there could be so many other Monicas in all our schools as well.
You're absolutely right, sir. And because I run the Focus Bridge School at the orphanage, we have a similar situation. And we have seen that, and that's what I had told sir, that for the first 4 or 5 months, we are not going to teach at all. We have been focusing on the individual needs of children, their problems, psychological problems, counseling them. And I think what sir is trying to say, and if I've understood right, because of so many socio-economic problems that are there in the classroom, and cases, we do have cases of abuse, we have cases of physical abuse, we have cases of sexual abuse, we have a wide range of things which are happening in the background. I think it's very, very important to have some kind of life skills leadership program in schools where it's not about learning academics, but it's learning about confidence, perseverance, working hard, taking responsibility, taking initiatives, feeling good about yourself. I think those are the core skills which have to be taught more than the curriculum. Because I think for any child who feels happy and secure and who has, who's content with himself and has identified himself, the learning is automatic, right? Did I get you right?
Yeah.
Yes. So if we if we have a kind of a life skills program in schools where the children are taught how to manage themselves, how to identify their emotions, how to ask for help, because most of the times they don't ask for help either. How to ask for help, how to reach out to others, how to collaborate within themselves, a lot of problems can be identified. Right, moving on to the round of questions. Usha ma'am, what do you think about having assessments at the beginning of the year in a classroom to establish individual learning points that students have reached in their learning and maybe to identify needs and talents? What is your take on it?
Actually, I also teach writing. So, with a writing class, I think it's absolutely essential to have an initial diagnostic and also for you to understand where the children are. And also, what I get them to do, I mean, again, I'm teaching at the tertiary level, so the exact way in which this plays out in a school classroom might be different. But what I also ask my students to do is, while they give me this initial diagnostic, also to tell me why they think they want to learn how to write better. Because I think that also gets at this individual needs notion, right? So not everybody wants to be a Booker Prize winner. Some of them just want to be able to write a zero error or an error-free sentence. Some of them want to be technical writers, and so on. So I think an initial diagnostic helps both the student and the teacher. And what I do with it is I usually hold on to it, and then I give it back to them at the end of the semester so that they can see if there's been a shift in learning. So I think that works for many subjects, but particularly for subjects where it is a skill that you're trying to teach.
I'll carry this thought forward and bring it to the panel that I also think that assessments and whatever data that we're collecting in the whole academic year for each child, don't you think that it should be passed on to the next teacher? And this is where I think a lot of schools lack. Each teacher collects a huge amount of academic data for every child, which is a requirement of most schools. But I seldom see the data being passed on to the next teacher. And the new teacher in the new classroom has to start from scratch with every child. So,
Yeah,
you wanted to add something?
yeah. I just wanted to add what Ma'am has said is what I asked my teachers to have a prerequisite test. Before that, end of the year, there is a transition meet with the class nursery to class nursery to PP1 and PP2 and so on and so forth, or at the pre-primary level, where I give the profile of my class to the next teacher. So she knows how many children are there, they need that support. So when I have a holistic picture, I can take off from there and I can design my activities or my lesson plan. The transition meet is very, very important. Otherwise, what happens when the children go to the 10th class, the buck is passed on downwards, 9th, 8th, and poor nursery teacher is caught. She doesn't know what to do now. I really feel pity for the nursery teacher. She has nobody to blame. So the transition meet is very important. Kindly have transition meet where I give my class profile to sir, and then he looks at that profile, how many children need the support. Then as a teacher, I take it forward. Otherwise, what will happen? This will go on multiplying. The gaps will go on multiplying. They will be never filled.
They often do.
Yes, I think,
they get multiplied and they are never solved. Yes, sir.
Ma'am, I also want to add to, what is happening is now is, instead of the good things being passed on, the teachers ask the next
Things
class
to
teacher,
be passed on.
how are the children there? So, yeah, but be careful about George, be careful about Sai Pramod, very troublesome children, especially their mother. His mother is very, very troublesome. Every teacher comes, so be careful about that. So this is being passed on. I'm sure that you all agree with me, right? So we don't never pass on the good things as a teacher. We always think mother is very troublesome. So try to avoid her. So ask her some hard questions so she won't come on to the class again, school again.
Yeah, we should highlight the strengths of the children.
And having a baseline test, I think that's the right thing to do now.
Yes, VLDT test.
Right thing to do, baseline test and a midline test and the endline test, So that can be given to the next teacher. And we do have some kind of baseline test in our schools when they come into the...
That's wonderful.
So we take care of the future learners as well that way. So the individual needs are met in our schools. That's why in the government sector we are successful. You all know that.
See, we always blame the parents. Parents are not doing this, not doing that, not doing this. What as a teacher am I doing? We know the fact that there is zero support from the parents. That as an educator, what am I doing? How much am I contributing? Is a big question mark.
So I think it's a very interesting question because it talks about data and data-driven decision making. The world is talking about data-driven decision making at a large scale, but unfortunately, schools are not using data. The tests that we conduct, the report cards that are generated is only for the parents. After the test is done, after the report card is given, I don't think any teacher sees in budget private schools context. What is the mastery of student? Where did they go wrong? Where did they do well? What are the challenges? I don't think any school, hardly few schools might have that kind of a system where they introspect. It is for that reason we see students in grade 6, grade 7, grade 8 also who can't read. How did these children move to that grade level without even teachers identifying that they are not able to read? If we had looked at the data consistently, every single formative test, every single summative test, right from grade 1, perhaps we could have done something at that time. Why did we pass the buck, or why did we pass those students to so many levels? It's a waste of time for 5 years, and high likelihood that students will drop out because they're not finding school relevant to them, because school is not creating that support system, or schools might resort to something else. They might start moving around in the community, not focusing on education. Again, we start complaining students are not respectful, they're not good, they're not concentrating education, but we forget the underlying problem. The students have not picked up basic competencies which will help them master the content. That is the fundamental problem, but we are thinking of basic assumptions in different ways.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I just wanted to respond to this term future learner and take issue with it, because I think all children are learners. They are learning something. They may not be learning what we think they should be learning. So I think future learning tends to put them in this limbo, that, okay, you're not there yet, but so just to reconsider that term.
Right, they are going to be there, not today or tomorrow.
Yeah,
Right?
we have very less time left,
Yeah,
so I'd quickly like to
One
ask...
second, what Sai Pramod was talking, you find some unwilling children go to the school. Sometime back there was a picture of Mr. Ronald Rose, collector of Mahbubnagar, pulling a boy back to the school. The reason is, he finds our schools are very, very uninteresting. There's nothing for the child to come to the school. So our teaching is so damp, our teaching is so monotonous. Our classroom should be very dynamic, child-friendly. So that's the reason why we have a lot of dropouts. They are not dropouts, they are driven out of our schools by ourselves.
Yes.
I don't agree with the word called dropouts. They are driven out by our teachers, by ourselves.
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
and I think some of the problem lies that we are so focused on children, and this question is open to the panel. We are so focused on children with low learning abilities that we forget children with high cognitive abilities. And there are children who need to be challenged. They are absolutely bored in the classroom because whatever the teacher is repeating 10 times, he's already got it the first time. So, what according to you would be a good classroom practice to challenge students of higher IQ who need to be constantly challenged?
So,
Yeah, because we're always looking at children with lower abilities. What about children with higher IQ? They're so bored. That's why they don't want to be in the classroom.
So I would respond to that, and I would actually add one more point. If you look at a typical classroom, if you look at the data, the students who have poor mastery, say less than 30%, could be around 20% in the classroom. I'm just giving a rough estimation. Students who are mastered very well, may say 80% and above, maybe 20%. What about the rest of the 60%? Are we thinking of them? The reason why I'm asking this question is, often we see reports in papers which talks about 70% of Indian students are not in a position to be employed. Maybe I think these are the 60% of the students whose mastery was not good. We did not address that problem.
Yes.
And Madam was talking about manifestations in the tertiary sector. Maybe these are the ones who had lots of gaps, but somehow they got through the system.
So you are absolutely right. And I think I'll end the panel discussion, I just have 2 minutes left, by concluding that I think it's high time that schools in India and across look at not what we expect the children to reach, but I think individually where every child is at. Every child is on a different learning point. So if you are on point A individually, it is the bar should be kept at point B and then point C and point D, so that every child has got a goal. And it's not about high ability students and it's not about low ability students. It's not about average learning children. It's about setting the bar higher for every child so that the child has a target and the child has got somewhere to reach. So at the end of the year, or maybe middle of the year, the child can say, I was at so-and-so place, I didn't know how to read 3-letter words, and now I'm able to read a sentence. I didn't know how to read a sentence, but now I'm able to read a paragraph. So for every child, there is something to do and something to look up to, right? Would you like to add something, sir?
Yes, I think, some of the best practices, I think you ask a question about what about the children who are with good abilities to learn,
Yeah.
Give them some challenging things like design thinking. And let them make, if science is concerned, let them make some prototypes, design thinking. And for again, low achievers, we can keep some mirrors in the corridors. Mirrors. Fix mirrors in the corridors of the schools. And ask the children to talk to themselves, talk to their reflections. That way, they will build up confidence. Again, it is proven. We have 6 to 7 mirrors fixed into the verandas, in the corridors. And every child, you can find any time of the day, right from morning 6 to night 10, we'll find children standing in front of the mirror and talking to themselves. And we found that their communication skills, their confidence level, the public speaking skills have improved. That one way we can, I think, the children with the future learners can do it out.
We can also create learning corners, a class library also, because we, the high achievers, as Asma said, we call them hyperactive children. What is the definition of hyperactive? So let us not go into those terms, where we are not clear ourselves. Hyperactive. Why is he hyperactive? What is hyperactive? He's very hyperactive, mom. He's very hyper. But why? And what are we doing for that?
Yes,
Yeah.
I would also like to add a last point that generally children who are poor readers suffer in all areas of the
Yes.
classroom because of their inability to read content material and reference material. So in a history class, a poor reader is suffering. In a geography class, the poor reader is suffering. And one simple solution for poor readers would be the kind of method or the process that you use for them to understand. Like if you're doing a history lesson, it's not necessary that you read a book. You can see a video, you can enact, you can do a song, you can play, and the way you present the evaluation point can also be different.
Absolutely.
For children who are of different abilities.
They cannot be put on the same platform.
Yes, it's not, I think it's also time that we changed a little bit of our evaluation. The end product, the child can show his learning in many ways and not just penning it down on paper. Right? With that, we would like to end the discussion. Thank you very, very much for your time and for coming in today.
For the audience, half a second. For the audience, I think so most of you must be knowing that there is a 100 crore project coming up by the Telangana government. I don't know whether you know that. And they are looking for the entrepreneurs, those who are educated ladies, women empowerment, and then especially for the women's sector. They are looking for entrepreneurs, though are educated but not getting a job, and they have a zeal and passion for teaching and becoming leaders. If anybody is interested, kindly approach me. I'll be here only. Thank you so much. And as sir rightly said about our old city, I think so this is the right platform, sir. To create that ambience and then catering to their needs, especially in the education sector. Thank you very much.
Focus High School.